Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Jason Whitmore was the kind of teenager that many underestimated. He had an unusual calm for his age, and although his parents tried to convince him that the right path was college, he kept his feet on the ground and his ideas firm. Thomas, his father, always made a point of stressing that no one got far without a degree, that the world out there was cruel, and that the minimum a decent man should have was a college education. Linda, his mother, followed her husband's speech, worried about the idea of seeing her son deviate from traditional plans. But Jason observed everything in silence, with his head full of plans that weren't in academic books or classrooms. The only one who really understood him was his grandfather Gerald. The connection between them went back early. When he was a child, Jason used to accompany his grandfather on visits to vacant lots and abandoned houses that he bought to renovate and resell. The boy watched his grandfather talk to construction workers, architects, store owners, and saw how every wall built or torn down had a purpose. That stayed with him. And when it came time to decide what he would do after high school, Jason was straightforward. He wanted to work in real estate. He wanted to buy, renovate, and sell. Thomas almost had a breakdown. He thought it was a passing fancy. Linda cried for days. But Gerald not only supported, he bet. He sold a small warehouse he no longer used and put the money into his grandson's hands. He said that would be the first test. Jason bought a house almost in ruins, with a crooked roof and cracks everywhere. He spent weeks studying videos, reading everything about renovations, calling experienced people, asking questions, learning by doing. He slept little, but smiled more than ever. When the house was ready, simple, but safe and functional, he managed to sell it for almost double the price. The feeling he had was unforgettable. There, he began a journey that would change his life. At 18 years old, he registered his own company and named it Ironwood Developments, in honor of the strong wood his grandfather said was a symbol of perseverance. With the money from the first sale, he bought 2 more properties and repeated the process. He started being known in the region as the guy who renovated houses alone. Soon, he attracted the attention of real estate agents who wanted to make partnerships. It was in this context that he met Nina and April, 2 charismatic and ambitious sisters. Both were interested in him, each in their own way. With Nina, there was immediate chemistry. April was more reserved, but didn't hide her admiration. The conversations turned into dates. The dates, intimacy. Jason, young and still learning how to handle his own success, became involved with both at different times, without imagining the consequences of that. What he lived with Nina was impulsive, with April, more curious. But everything changed when he met Tessa, the younger sister. She appeared during a casual visit to the sister's office and left Jason intrigued. Tessa was different. She didn't have that competitive air, didn't try to impress anyone, and was firm in what she said. Unlike the others, she seemed not to care about him at all. That woke him up in an unexpected way. He decided to get to know her better. And the more they talked, the more he realized she saw the world in a way similar to his. Direct, no nonsense, no games. When she told him she was studying to work in school administration, he was charmed. Not because of the job, but because of her passion for education, her desire to make a difference. They started dating and the relationship became intense. Tessa found out about the relationships Jason had with the sisters, and even though she didn't hide her discomfort, she said that was part of the past, and that the present depended on him. Jason saw in that attitude a maturity he hadn't seen in other people he had been with. For her, he started rethinking how he conducted his personal life. He left flirts behind, focused on business and the relationship. In no time, they were living together. Shortly after, they got married. It was a simple wedding, but true. A silent pact between 2 young people who knew what they wanted, each in their own way. While many childhood friends were still trying to figure out what they would do with their lives, Jason had already built a small local empire of renovated properties. He had vision, courage, and willingness. He was respected in the market, even though he was so young. The connection with Tessa seemed to reinforce this growth path even more. Together, they began dreaming of a family. When Tessa became pregnant with their first daughter, Jason decided to slow down the construction projects and started hiring a trusted team to manage the projects. From then on, his priorities began to change. Work was still important, but taking care of the house, his wife, and the baby on the way became an essential part of the routine. The young man who once was said to be throwing away his life by refusing college was now a solid entrepreneur, about to become a father. But none of this would have happened if he had ignored his instincts, or let himself be carried away by the fear of disappointing his parents. Gerald, the grandfather, continued to be by his side, watching everything with pride. Whenever he could, Jason took him to visit a new project or show him the before and after of a renovation. His eyes sparkled when he saw his grandson turning ruins into homes. That generational connection remained alive. And it was precisely this family foundation, this link between past and present, that would support Jason through the storms yet to come. Jason's life began to shape into something bigger than he had imagined. Beside Tessa, everything seemed to work in harmony. When Ellie was born, he dedicated himself completely to the new role of father. He didn't outsource that responsibility. He learned to change diapers, give baths, get up in the middle of the night. Tessa, who returned to work soon after maternity leave, trusted him to take care of the baby with the same attention he gave to his company projects. And he did it with pleasure, presence, and commitment. It was as if he had discovered a part of himself he didn't even know existed. Over time, came Brooke and then Harper. 3 girls, 3 worlds, and Jason embraced everything without hesitation. The routine was full of commitments, but also of meaning. He started the day feeding the daughters, taking them to school, stopping by the Ironwood Development's office to review contracts, visit worksites, solve pending issues. Afterward, he returned before dinner to be with the family. He made sure to keep Sunday lunches together, even if it was just simple food. For him, the value wasn't in the menu, but in the conversations, the stories, the smiles around the table. Tessa, slowly, stood out as a school administrator, promoted for real merits, with dedication and results. She was a respected professional, with a firm, ethical, and at the same time welcoming posture. Jason admired that. He told everyone that Tessa was the real brain of the house, while he was just the heart beating in the rhythm of the family. They lived in a comfortable house, directly a result of his work. But everything changed when Gerald passed away and left the Netto, the old rural property where he spent summers with his wife before the illness. It was a simple place, with a structure that already showed its age, but surrounded by good memories. Jason visited the place with the daughters, who loved the spacious area, the silence, the freedom. He decided to renovate the place completely, respecting the essence, but making it functional for a family with 3 children and an intense routine. The renovation lasted months, but he supervised every detail. When it was ready, it felt like they were starting a new stage. They moved there permanently. And everything gained another rhythm. In the new house, Jason found balance. The place allowed the girls to run freely, gave him a space just to draw up projects, and let Tessa study and work with peace of mind. They started creating their own traditions. On the first Saturday of each month, they had a picnic in the grass. Every Friday night was pizza night made at home. During winter, they camped inside the living room, setting up makeshift tents with blankets and mattresses, just to stay together. The house became more than a home. It was a symbol. A landmark of what they had built as a family. At the same time, Jason expanded his business. He stopped working only with renovations and started investing in rental properties. He bought old houses, put them up for rent with affordable contracts, and guaranteed steady income. He also began acting in the fast resale market, identifying good opportunities and closing deals quickly. The Ironwood Developments grew, gained respect, attracted investors. Jason, however, didn't get dazzled. He kept the focus on the family. He preferred to earn less and be present rather than increase revenue at the cost of absence. Tessa respected that, even if she didn't always understand his attachment to certain routines. Sometimes, she showed a desire to travel more, take courses abroad, attend conferences with her sisters. He supported, took care of the kids alone, reorganized everything so she could develop professionally. It was during these trips that small noises began to appear. Nothing serious. Just longer silences on the phone, evasive answers when he asked how her day was. Jason sensed something different, but preferred to attribute it to tiredness, stress, distance. He trusted. Always had. He believed that respect was the base of any relationship. Meanwhile, he kept the house running, took the daughters to medical appointments, prepared their school lunches, solved household and business tasks. He took care of everything as if it were his only job. And for him, it was. Tessa was grateful. She always said she didn't know how he managed to handle everything. Jason smiled and answered that it was because he was sure the family came before any business. Inside this scenario, small stories emerged showing exactly who Jason was. Like the day Harper fell off her bike and hurt her knee. Tessa was traveling, her sisters couldn't help. Jason dropped an important meeting, ran to pick her up from school, stopped by the pharmacy, prepared a first aid kit, and spent the rest of the day with his daughter in his arms, watching cartoons and joking about the colorful bandage she chose. Or that time when Brooke had a high fever during the night. He stayed awake measuring her temperature every hour, with the thermometer in one hand and the phone in the other, looking up tips and ways to relieve her discomfort. Ellie, older, once said in front of everyone, "My dad is like a superhero who uses a drill and a pan." Jason laughed, but felt a pride that even the biggest contracts of his company couldn't provide. Meanwhile, the relationship with Tessa remained solid on the outside. They had long conversations when they were alone, made plans for the future, thought about where each daughter might study, how they could help the girls choose their paths. Tessa seemed happy. She spoke about her work with enthusiasm, praised Jason's dedication. They made sure to have a dinner for two once a month, something simple, but just the two of them. And on those nights, she always thanked him for everything he did. Jason replied that it wasn't a sacrifice. It was life. Everything seemed balanced. And this balance, built brick by brick, step by step, was what gave meaning to what Jason believed about love, responsibility, and presence. He didn't see life in terms of success or failure. He saw it as construction. As a well-built house, with a strong foundation, aligned walls, and constant care. And within this house, nothing seemed more important to him than protecting what was most precious, his daughters and the woman he chose to share everything with. Until, gradually, cracks began to appear where he least expected. And the structure he believed indestructible began to show fractures. The first time Jason suspected something was by accident. He was returning from the warehouse where he stored building materials when he decided to enter the house through the back door, which he rarely did. He heard muffled laughter coming from the living room and thought Tessa was on a call with her sisters. He grabbed a bottle of water and listened, without intending to intrude on the conversation. But something caught his attention. Her laughter sounded tense, forced. The words came quickly, as if hiding something. He didn't want to interfere, but when he heard his own name in the middle of the conversation, he froze. Tessa said that Jason would never know anything, and that trip to San Diego should have been avoided, especially with that doctor involved. Nina's voice came next, trying to calm the situation. April, with a sharp tone, suggested they delete anything that was still saved on the phone. Jason felt his heart race. That wasn't a light conversation between sisters. It was an exchange of information about something serious. He went back to the car and sat there for a few minutes, trying to understand what he had heard. There was no direct mention of infidelity, but everything pointed to it. He remembered the annual trips Tessa took with her sisters, always to different cities. He justified it by saying it was a way to maintain the bond between them. Jason found it beautiful. He always respected it, took care of the kids with love, kept the house organized for when his wife returned. Now, all these memories seemed to form a distorted image of what he believed to be true. When Tessa noticed his presence at home, she came smiling and asked if he needed help with something. Jason looked at her, trying to see some answer in her features. She seemed calm, serene, as if nothing had happened. He faked that everything was okay. Said he had just come back to get a document and left. That night, he had trouble sleeping. He thought about the words he had heard, the tone of the voices, the strange pauses. He remembered that weeks earlier, Tessa had had an infection and mentioned it could be urinary, maybe caused by contaminated water from one of the trips. At the time, Jason took it seriously, bought the prescribed medications, made light soups, and took care of her with all his attention. Now, all that seemed like a curtain hiding something much bigger. The next day, he took his wife's phone while she was in the shower. He knew the password, had never had reason to suspect. He searched for conversations with her sisters, but almost everything had been deleted. He found it strange. He only found a history of calls and a cloud file she had forgotten to disconnect. Inside, prints of hotel reservations, a document with notes about clinics in another state, and, among the files, a message exchange with a contact saved only as Dr. L. The messages started professionally, but gradually took a more intimate tone. They were full of compliments, hints, and one that said, "I can't stop thinking about that night, even though it was a mistake." Jason read that with trembling hands. He knew it wasn't a coincidence. That was the San Diego trip, the same one mentioned in the conversation with the sisters. Tessa had crossed a line Jason never imagined she would even consider. And the worst thing, the sisters covered for her, as if everything was part of a secret agreement between them. For 3 days, Jason isolated himself. He went to work, took care of the kids, but avoided any deeper contact with Tessa. He needed to think. He needed to understand what to do. He felt betrayed not only by his wife but also by the women who, for years, he accepted as part of the family. He started remembering past episodes with a different view. Remembered the time Harper had a recital and Tessa didn't show up, claiming the flight was delayed. At the time, he accepted the excuse without questioning. Now, he wondered if she had even taken that flight. Or the night he arranged a surprise dinner and, upon arriving home, she was strangely distant, as if she wasn't really there. Jason realized he had been ignoring signs, pretending certain behaviors were normal because he believed in the love he felt. He decided to talk to her, but not to argue. He wanted to hear her, see if she would have the courage to tell the truth. During a common dinner, when the girls were already asleep, he asked how that San Diego trip had been. Tessa froze for a second, then resumed her usual speech, lectures, outings with her sisters, little free time. Jason kept his expression neutral. Then he asked if she had met someone from work there. She hesitated, said yes, but that they had only had coffee. Jason thanked her for her honesty and left the table. He had the confirmation he needed. The lie was there, and she maintained it naturally. That same week, Jason acted with surgical coldness. He talked to the lawyer who had drawn up the prenuptial contract years ago. Explained the situation, presented the conversation prints, reservation records, documents. The lawyer didn't hesitate. He said the contract was clear. In case of proven infidelity, Jason would have full custody of the daughters and complete ownership of the assets built up until then. Even devastated emotionally, Jason focused on logistics. Prepared the paperwork, organized the documents, acted as if it were just another of the many projects he had executed in his life. The difference was that this project wouldn't end with a ribbon cutting, but with a rupture that would change everything forever. While organizing everything, Jason made sure to continue taking care of the daughters with the same love. He didn't vent his frustration onto them. Maintained the routine intact. took them to and from school, helped with homework, prepared dinner. Internally, he was going through a huge conflict. He loved the woman with whom he had built a life. But loving, at that moment, seemed insufficient in the face of what she had done. The feeling was of mourning for something that was still physically there but had already been emotionally destroyed. And even without knowing what tomorrow would bring, he decided he wouldn't live sustaining a lie. He was about to turn a definitive page, but before that, he needed to ensure that the daughters were protected, emotionally and legally, from the storm that was about to fall. Jason handed over the documents to his personal lawyer personally. Signed the last pages with a firm hand, as if sealing the end of a moral contract broken by the other party without remorse. The lawyer, experienced in divorce cases with prenuptial clauses, analyzed every detail of the evidence, the conversation prints, hotel reservations, the contact with the doctor, the travel dates, the conversation between the sisters. Everything fit precisely. He assured Jason that full custody of the daughters would be his, without room for contestation. It was evident who sustained the emotional home, who was present, who prioritized the children. In light of this, the process moved quickly. Tessa was informed by email and, at the same time, received the formal notice in person. Jason placed the papers on the table in the living room while taking the daughters to school. When he returned, she was sitting there with red eyes, holding the documents without saying a word. He didn't expect a confession, nor regret. But she tried. She started speaking in a low voice, saying she was confused, that she never wanted to destroy the family, that what happened was an isolated mistake. Jason corrected her calmly, saying that isolated mistakes don't repeat in different trips, with fabricated cover-ups, planned lies, deleted documents. She stopped arguing. Silence imposed itself between them like a wall that could no longer be bypassed. In the following days, Jason reorganized the routine of the daughters. Carefully explained that their mother would be away for a while. Ellie, already a teenager, understood everything immediately. Brooke asked few questions, but made it clear with her look that she had understood more than she said. Harper, the youngest, was confused. She asked if her mother was sick, if she would return, if they still loved her. Jason answered honestly, with the gentleness the situation allowed. He said families change, but his love as a father would remain whole, every day, without exception. Tessa left the house in silence. Took only 2 suitcases, some clothes, and personal items. She said she would call the daughters. Jason allowed it. The calls, however, became increasingly spaced out. Ellie refused them all. Brooke answered once and hung up halfway through the conversation. Harper still responded to some short messages, but fewer and fewer. Jason avoided interfering. He knew the bond between mother and daughters was a delicate matter and forcing any premature reconciliation could cause more damage than healing. Life began to adjust. Jason returned to work with more focus. Divided the company tasks better with his 2 main employees and started spending more time with the daughters outside the house. Took them hiking, outings, small weekend trips. Made sure each one of them felt safe. Renovated one of the rooms in the house to turn it into an art room, where all 3 could draw, paint, or simply listen to music. He wanted that home to be a space of emotional reconstruction, not a constant reminder of what was lost. Even in this new phase, Jason kept in touch with the lawyer to ensure the judicial process was handled cleanly. Tessa, advised by her own legal representatives, tried to revise the terms of the prenuptial, but the judge was direct. He said the evidence was clear, and the document signed before the marriage was legally valid. Full custody of the daughters remained with Jason. The property was redistributed as stipulated in the contract. She was given a smaller amount than she had expected, enough to start over, but far from what she would have had if there had been no proven infidelity. With the final decision in hand, Jason breathed a sigh of relief. It was strange to think that everything had unfolded in a matter of months. A marriage of years, imploded in weeks. But instead of focusing on the pain of loss, he chose to observe what remained, the love of his daughters, the respect he had earned with his stance, and the certainty that he had acted with dignity at all times. The daughters noticed this. Ellie, who initially closed herself off, started helping more around the house. Brooke smiled again. Harper slept better. The absence of tension in the air made a difference in how each of them behaved. Over time, friends began to approach again. Some confessed they had already suspected something, but didn't know how to address it. Others said they admired how he had handled everything. Jason thanked them, but kept the description minimal. He didn't feel the need to expose Tessa, nor feed rumors. He preferred to protect the daughters and move forward with his own life. He had full awareness that her betrayal had left scars, but he wouldn't become a prisoner of bitterness. He continued to be a man who believed in family, even though his had been redesigned by force. One night, Brooke appeared in the living room with an envelope in her hands. Said it was a letter from school, but when Jason opened it, he realized it was a writing assignment. The topic was, "Someone I admire." Brooke had written about her father. She said he was strong, fair, kind, and made better pancakes than anyone else. Jason held back a laugh as he read that. When he finished, he hugged his daughter and put the paper in a box where he kept important memories. That was, without a doubt, one of the most valuable ones. From then on, something inside him began to change. He no longer woke up with the same weight in his chest. He no longer felt the absence of Tessa as a whole, but as a removed wall that now allowed more light. He didn't rush to start a new relationship. He had 3 good reasons to move forward slowly, and each of them slept in a different room in that house. If someone looked from the outside, they might say Jason had been cheated on. But if they looked closely, they would realize he had been faithful to the end, to the family, his own values, and what he believed was right. Months after the divorce ended, Jason received an email from the court informing him that there was a sealed envelope left by Gerald, his grandfather, with specific instructions. It should only be delivered after the separation was officially concluded. Upon opening it, he found a handwritten letter. The grandfather's words were direct, as they always were. "If you're reading this, it means you finally saw what you tried to ignore. Love is beautiful, but it needs to be reciprocal. Don't accept crumbs just because you are loyal. When you renovate houses, always remember, not every foundation is worth keeping. And the same goes for people." Along with the letter, there was the deed to a commercial lot in an area in rapid appreciation. Jason didn't even know about the existence of that land. It was a silent gift, kept for years, waiting for the right moment. That meant more than money or opportunity. It was the way Gerald found to say he was proud of the man his grandson had become. Jason cried. Not for the pain of the past, but for the wisdom of the one who had prepared him to face it. Without hesitation, he decided to build the new headquarters of Ironwood Developments on that land. During the inauguration, with his 3 daughters by his side, looking at the plaque with the company name, Jason felt something deep. He understood, right there, that building houses was what he knew how to do. But building values, integrity, and a true home, that took a lifetime. And that was the true legacy his grandfather had left. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.